It's InfoWars Nightly News. We are back. We're going to go to this short video clip with director and filmmaker Bill Bean dealing with Timothy McVeigh a few years before the Oklahoma City bombing at a demolition military base a year after he was supposedly out of the military. Here's that clip, and we're going to Mr. Bean.
Hi, my name is Bill Bean. I work in the film industry. On August 3rd, 1993, I was at Camp Grafton, North Dakota. Camp Grafton is a military training academy for the United States Army, the Army Reserve, and the National Guard. The reason I was there was to scout locations for a film project I was working on. I was given a tour of the base. It's designated by Colonel Dahl. We were by the motor pool, and there were a large group of tanks that were parked there. I saw two soldiers parking an armored vehicle. I asked the billeting director if I could go over and interview the soldiers. So I walked over to the armored vehicle. It had a porthole in the back. I entered inside. The soldier who had been driving the vehicle was closing a hatch in the front. When he turned around, he looked at me and he froze. I had my video camera running, and I said to him, "What's your job?" And he looked at me and he said, "What?" I said, "What's your job?" He says, "I'm nobody, I'm just a parts clerk." On August 3rd, 1993 is when I videotaped and interviewed Timothy McVeigh a year and a half after he was supposedly out of the military completely. I never knew that the soldier in the tank meant a damn thing until 1997 or 1998. I brought my videotape over to a friend of mine who knew my project, and he told me he'd like to see what I recently shot. He said to me, "Let me see it." So I popped the tape in, and it started in the middle where the McVeigh footage was, only I didn't know it was McVeigh at the time. And my friend said to me, "Where did you shoot this?" And I said, "Well, that was at Camp Grafton in North Dakota." He said, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "I don't know, so just some guy in a tank didn't want to talk to me." He says, "No, that's Timothy McVeigh. That's the guy who blew up the Murrah Federal Building." And I said to him, "Are you sure?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "I've been watching the trial all day on TV."
Again, that was a clip from the film A Noble Lie, Oklahoma City, 1995, with one of the most intriguing characters in this entire saga seeking after the truth. I haven't interviewed him in many years. Bill Bean is a filmmaker currently living in Chicago, and he has made a lot of different films and also acted as well. And we'll get him to basically break down the story of his run-in with this supposed mastermind of the Oklahoma City bombing, Timothy McVeigh, which subsequently did get picked up by some major newspapers and magazines in the United States, but never became a big nightly news issue. And it's undoubtedly McVeigh there at a demolitions base, a Army base specializing in demolitions. And the footage is undoubtedly him. And this fits into what we know about McVeigh, that he had been sheep-dipped, or basically taken out of the military and put into clandestine operations, a well-known practice. And joining us to break it down is Bill Bean. Bill, thanks for coming on with us.
Sure, good to be here, Alex.
You're the expert on this. Start at the beginning.
Okay, I was producing a film. I had written a screenplay, and I had gotten to the stage where I had investors that were interested, but they wanted to see something ahead of time so they knew that they were investing their money correctly. So I went out to the Dakotas to get a lock on locations. I went out to ranches, I went out to farms, I talked to people. One of the people I talked to was Jeff Esslinger at the North Dakota Film Office. Jeff read my screenplay. Jeff talked to me about what I wanted to shoot, and he was sending me to a couple of different locations, and he added that I could go to a military base because I had several military bases in my screenplay. I'd actually told him that I really wasn't that interested. I had a lock on a couple of other bases, but he said, "Why don't you just show up? If you don't want to use it, that's fine. It's right on your way." So I contacted the Camp Grafton in North Dakota. It's a military training academy. What they teach there is explosives and demolition, and bridge building. And I had a meeting prepared with a Colonel Dahl. Colonel Dahl was the superintendent of Camp Grafton. I videotaped Colonel Dahl talking to me and stating that I was at Camp Grafton to scout locations for my film. And then Colonel Dahl turned me over to the billeting director, a man by the name of Paul Osser. Paul actually took me on the tour of the base. The tour lasted, about 2 hours or so. We looked at any location I wanted to look at. We went to some general locations. We went to the rec room, the mess hall. I videotaped all the locations. Then we got to some of the more interesting places. We went to the motor pool where they had gigantic earth-moving equipment. We went to the armory, which I actually got a kick out of. I didn't really know what it was. It was just a big vaulted door. And I said to the soldiers in charge there, I said, gee, could I go in there? And they said, oh, okay. So they opened up the armory. They had to unlock a door like you do at a vaulted safe in a bank. I went inside. I videotaped that. We went over to the communications room. Then we went outside of the motor pool, and there was a long string of tanks, probably the length of a football field, various kinds, various makes. In fact, I was informed that several of the tanks had been captured in the Gulf War. This was the first Gulf War. And some of them were Russian, I believe. So while I was videotaping that location, I saw a flatbed, a very large flatbed with two soldiers, one soldier inside and one soldier outside directing. So the armored vehicle, I've been corrected. I used to call it a tank, and people have corrected me and say, well, no, that's not a tank. It's an armored vehicle. Okay, I accept the correction. It's an armored vehicle. And the one soldier was inside, and he took the armored vehicle off the flatbed, and it stalled out once it got on the ground. I kept videotaping, and it stalled out again. So rather than quit taping, I did a very slow 360-degree pan in all directions, establishing right then and there that I was at Camp Grafton and that this armored vehicle was parked there at Camp Grafton. The billeting director that I was with was on the phone, and since I had been able to go anywhere else I wanted to go, I said, gee, could I go interview those guys? And he nodded yes. So I walked over, and when the armored vehicle was parked, I entered it through a large porthole in the rear. I crouched in the entrance, and because the vehicle had been running, the individual parking the vehicle wasn't aware that I was inside the vehicle.
Yeah, you went in the rear hatch, and to be clear, this is a few years before the Oklahoma City bombing, but about a year after, I'm going from memory, so correct me if I'm wrong, but about a year after he'd supposedly been out of the military, and it matches photos from around the time with him being a bit thinner. But if you look at the hands, the rest of the body, and I've studied this video closely over the years, I'd say 99.9% this is Tim McVeigh. What's your view on that?
Oh yeah, there's no question that it's Tim McVeigh. I took the shot. I froze when I looked at the video years later. I froze it right when he turned around, and I was able to, through computers, to put up specific shots of Tim McVeigh from that time. In fact, his military shot, where he is in the military uniform with the military cap, I placed right exactly next to it, plus a shot taken when he was younger and he had longer hair. And when you put the three in a line, it is Timothy McVeigh, no question. The one problem we had was you couldn't see a name patch on there. but you could read on the left shoulder was a patch that took us quite a while to figure out what it was, but it was the North Dakota National Guard patch, which is like 5 arrows pointing up. So he was wearing a North Dakota National Guard patch, and so I got the shot. My tape is rolling. I'm looking directly at him, and he sort of freezes there for a second, and I casually say to him, what's your job? And he just sort of looks at me and he goes, what? And I said, what's your job? And he tries to push his way past me, but because I'm crouched in the entrance, he can't get by. So he crouches in the corner out of camera range, and he says, I'm just a parts clerk. And I didn't really know what to make of that. I thought it was kind of insulting because he's not just a parts clerk. He's parking a tank, and he must be a soldier there doing something, but I decided not to push him on it. So I said to him, oh, you're just parking this one, huh? And he says, yeah, basically. And then I let him pass by through the porthole.